Hi, my name is Alma's Mage System. Today, we are going to be talking about how to know if you're trans. I have seen a lot of different videos on this subject, and I almost leave all of them feeling unsatisfied, and all of them seem to say the same things, which is often something like, well, a little bit of doubt is normal, but if you have too much doubt, you might not be trans, or something like that, or just stuff you've heard before that just isn't really that helpful or that you've already tried. And so we're just going to get into it. Firstly, with that point that if you doubt yourself too much, you might not really be trans. I think that it's really important to note here that that's not true. I think that if you have an obsessive type of brain where you just overthink things a lot and you are coming to terms with the fact that you're trans, I think it is very easy to overthink that and have like some sort of obsessive compulsive thoughts about it. Um, I think that's pretty normal, and I don't think that means that you're not trans. Um, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is, are you staying the gender that you were assigned at birth, not because you identify with it, but just because you're more comfortable with it? Some people would say that you can't have those two things separately and that you can't both not identify with something and be comfortable with it. But I would argue the opposite, especially for neurodivergent people, because you know what autistic people often have a hard time with? Change. Do you know what this whole thing is called? It's called a transition. So I think that it is very normal to just be like weary of it because you have, for example, in the case of a trans mask, you've been a girl your whole life, you've gotten used to it, you've gotten comfortable with it, you know how to do it. It's almost like a safety blanket you can wear. You can be the nice girl so that no one's going to judge you. And as soon as you start exposing your real identity, that's really scary, especially whenever you know what you look like, you look good, you know how your personality is. Whenever you transition to male, you don't know what you're going to look like, and you don't know how to act like a man. You don't know any of those things, and that's really hard. And so I just want to say that if this is the case for you, just think about it. Think about, are you actually experiencing doubt because you're not really trans, or just because you are not comfortable yet with the idea of being trans? Um, and I guess my advice as far as this is, again, the stuff you've already heard: take baby steps, get your closest friends to try out pronouns on you and names, cut your hair if you're a trans guy, you know, change your wardrobe or whatever. And then as far as physical transition, here's my little trick I did with my hormones. If you are trying to decide whether you're trans and you should go on hormones, with me, I started on a very low dose of testosterone so that if I started getting uncomfortable at any point because the changes would go slower, I could stop it and not too much irreversible changes would have happened. And what happened is, very quickly into being on that low dose, whenever changes did start happening, I was like, oh, I like this. Actually, I need it to happen a lot faster, please. So I'm going to go on a higher dose soon. Um, yeah, there's my little take on that. Oftentimes, whenever I see trans guys get scared of going on testosterone, they always want their voice to drop. That's the main thing. I want my voice to drop, but I'm scared of this, you know? And I think like those most common things that I see about that is they're afraid testosterone will make them ugly, and they are afraid of bottom growth. So I'm going to address each of those. First of those, that it'll make you ugly. My guy, the most average trans guy, is like better than the best. This guy, looks wise, that's hyperbolic. But what I'm trying to say, in all actuality, is that you will probably remain the same level of attractiveness that you are now, but just the male version. If you look at people's transitions, that's usually what ends up happening. Just look at a bunch of trans guys pre and post transition. You'll probably see that that's what happens. There are some things about your face that it will change. Number one, acne. My acne was pretty clear right before I started T, finally. And then I started T, and God, I feel like I'm 16 again. It's, I mean, I'm not too frustrated by it, but it's annoying. I'm on cephalexin right now because I just got top surgery and that's an antibiotic. So my acne is cleared, but it will go back to normal. You wait. Um, and then water retention. This really freaked me out, but testosterone will make you hold water retention. So your face might look a little puffier. Anyways, something completely unrelated happened and I got triggered. So the angle change of the video happened because I wanted to sit differently. I guess I'll continue with what I was saying. I take this dandelion supplement for water retention. It's done me wonders. I don't know where I'd be without it. It's great. Also, drink a lot of water. That actually really helps with water retention. And also, it makes you have a better quality of life being hydrated. Trust me. Um, a lot of people are then after that worried about bottom growth. And bottom growth, I understand why you're worried. I can't stress enough how much I was worried, and then I just don't fucking care. After the fact, I don't care. It really doesn't impact my life at all. Also, it doesn't look weird. People think I guess you imagine it'll look like some little alien dink appendage. It just looks normal. Obviously, it doesn't look like it used to, but it looks normal. Like it doesn't look weird. Honestly, if you were to just go on T, then detransition and go hook up with some random person who didn't know you were ever trans in the first place, they probably wouldn't even notice anything. They would just, well, they would notice it, but they wouldn't be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? They would just be like, that's interesting, you know? It's really it like I said, it looks normal. Like it really just looks like a genitalia. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's not as scary as you think it is. You'll be fine. And maybe you'll even learn to actually like it and appreciate it because it's cool. It's cool. It's unique, especially if you have a lot of bottom dysphoria. It could be helpful for you. But if you have a lot of bottom dysphoria, you're probably looking forward to bottom growth. Um, the next thing I want to get into is the detransition stuff. So a lot of this video is inspired by Arthur Rockwell's video, which I hope I remember to link in the description, who also made a really amazing video on how to know if you're trans. That was a different approach and not like all the other videos. And so some of the points I'm going to make are kind of borrowed from him here. I think the main fear of being afraid that you're not trans is that, you know, you'll transition, you'll hate it, and then you'll detransition. And let's just think about that for a second. Firstly, I wanted to say that just because someone detransitions, it doesn't mean they were never trans. So even if you know for certain that you're trans and then you go transition, it doesn't mean you're never going to detransition. People detransition because they transition, they aren't satisfied with how they look, and they decide, fuck it, even if I don't identify as this gender, I'll just go back to living as that one. Or they don't have enough social support or anything like that. There are several reasons why people could detransition, even if they were trans in the first place. And I think that you can never really be certain that you will never detransition. You just can't. It doesn't matter how fucking sure you are. You just can't be certain that you're not going to wake up one day and want to detransition. So, first thing I wanted to say that Arthur Rockwell said in his video that was brilliant is that some people, whenever are giving advice about how to figure out if you're trans or not, will do the hypothetical that you're on a deserted island and no one else is there. Do you still want to transition? But I think that's not a very good hypothetical because I think there are plenty of trans people who would probably not want to detransition in that scenario because most of their dysphoria is social and not physical. And I think there are plenty of people who wouldn't end up detransitioning who would say that they wanted to transition in that scenario. It really isn't that great of a hypothetical, in my opinion. But as I was saying, I think that you could detransition at any point. So I think the thing that is most helpful to ask yourself at the very end of your search, what am I saying? I am trying so hard to talk right now. Is accepting the reality that you could detransition and thinking about what that could look like. I think in this scenario, there is often this deep subconscious fear that if you think about a possibility too much that it will happen. But that's bullshit in this situation. So I want you to sit there and imagine that you decide that you're unhappy with your transition and you want to detransition. Can you accept that? And what would that look like for you? For example, if you transition to male, maybe you'd want to get voice training to try and make your voice more feminine if you went on testosterone or get laser hair removal. And you have to take into account that those things could not work. Laser hair removal could not work for you. Voice training may not get you where you want to be. You have to think of through all of those things, and then you have to say, or almost mentally prepare yourself and just be like, if this were to happen, could I be okay with that? It will suck. It will be terrible. Can I accept that that could happen? I think that's just a really good thing to do. And then the last thing I wanted to cover in this video was a really good, also little thought experiment that Arthur Rockwell mentioned in his video, which I really recommend you check out his channel. He has some really interesting, thought-provoking takes on trans stuff that most trans creators don't explore. Um, I think he makes some really fucking solid videos. Um, so the best worst decision thought process. So basically, think of a life decision that you've made that worked out really well for you and that you're really glad that you made. Why did you make the decision? What was your thought process going into the decision and the nature of how you went into it? Just all of that good stuff. The place from your heart that the decision came from. Oh shit, I'm sorry. The place in your heart that the decision came from. And then just yeah, what that looked like for you. And then think of a decision that you made in your life that did not pan out so well for you or wasn't right for you or just wasn't the best decision you could have made then. And think of the mindset that you made that decision from and had going into it. Why did you make the decision? From what place in your heart did that come from? And then analyze the way that you are thinking about being trans right now and what that feels like for you. For me personally, the decisions that I made in my life that panned out good for myself were decisions that I made from a place of empowerment and decisions that I made because I felt like this is right for me and I deserve to do this for myself. And it's going to be difficult for me, but I deserve it. You know, like going to college and several different things, deciding to go get my mental health diagnoses and accepting that I have them. They were things that I knew weren't going to be easy, but that I felt like I needed. And then I feel like the decisions that I made that didn't pan out so well for me were decisions that I walked into from a place of dissociation or addiction. Things that I said to myself, this, or just how do I explain it? Also, things that I walked into because they gave me a short term satisfaction, like going into a relationship with somebody who was really hot. But at the end of the day, if you really thought critically about it, this probably isn't the best person to link up with. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, where you just make it because it feels good in the moment. And just think about that. That's what it looks like for me, but it might look different for you. And then think about where being trans is coming from for you and what this means to you. Um, yeah, I think that that's a really good way to look at it because being trans looks different for everybody. Some people knew they were trans from the time they were fucking 2 years old, and some people found out whenever they started going through puberty, and some people found out whenever they were 45 after they already got married and had kids. There's no wrong way to figure out that that you're trans. There's no wrong way to be trans. If you're a gender nonconforming trans person, like a trans guy that wears dresses or some shit, that doesn't mean absolute jack shit. You were brought up as a female, so you got the chance to be able to see how you felt in a dress. So the fact that you are a man wearing a dress doesn't mean you're not really a man. It just means you're a man who was given the chance to explore their feminine side. I feel like if a lot more cis men were given that chance, a lot more cis men would be wearing dresses right now. So I feel like all of these little things that you tell yourself that should discount your transness, they're just bullshit. Everybody experiences transness in a different way. And there is a stereotype of this cute, white, skinny trans mask man who knew he was trans from the time he was 3 and was peeing through a funnel into the toilet and complaining about where's his willy and getting the boy toy at the McDonald's and started T whenever he turned 16 and got top surgery as soon as he could and is happy and there's that whole stereotype and I think that that is not not always true. In fact, probably most of the time not true. I think being trans is a lot more complicated than having just a different brain, like a female brain in a male body or a male brain in a female body. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. So that concludes my thoughts on this topic. Sorry if my demeanor was just fucking weird or rushed in this video. Um, I'm not going to try to explain it. My brain is turning to mush right now. So thank you for watching. Um, okay, I was trying to find something cute to show you. I found this on my desk. What do you think?